The child's silence was louder than gunfire. Vincent Corleone knew the sound of death, had orchestrated it more times than he cared to count, but nothing unnerved him like the absolute quiet that followed his daughter everywhere she went. 4 years old. 4 years of specialists, therapists, doctors who spoke in careful whispers about selective mutism and psychological trauma, while avoiding his eyes. 4 years of watching Isabella's lips remain sealed, her dark eyes tracking everything, understanding everything but never, not once, making a sound. Tonight she sat beside him in the back of the Rolls-Royce, her small fingers clutching the stuffed rabbit that went everywhere with her. Vincent watched the city lights streak across her face as they drove toward the Grand Meridian Hotel. A charity banquet. The kind of evening where criminals laundered their reputations alongside their money, where handshakes sealed deals worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. He shouldn't have brought her. But the nanny had quit, the third one this month, and Vincent refused to miss this particular event. Too many eyes would notice his absence. Too many questions he couldn't afford to answer. "We'll stay 1 hour," he murmured, more to himself than to Isabella. She didn't respond. He never did. The hotel's grand ballroom glittered like a dragon's hoard, crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed everything, women dripping in diamonds that cost more than the staff would earn in 5 years. Vincent moved through the crowd with Isabella's hand in his, noting every face, every exit, every potential threat. Old habits. Necessary ones. Mr. Corleone. A politician whose campaign Vincent had funded appeared at his elbow, already launching into pleasantries. Vincent nodded at the appropriate intervals, his attention split between the conversation and his daughter, who stood perfectly still beside him, her rabbit pressed against her chest like armor. "Hey everyone watching, I hope you're having an incredible day wherever you are in the world right now. Welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time here, you're about to experience something special. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this story." The politician droned on. Vincent's phone buzzed. A message from Dimitri about a shipment delay. He was reaching for it when Isabella's hand suddenly tightened in his. Not a squeeze. A grip. Her nails dug into his palm with surprising strength. Vincent's attention snapped to her immediately, following her gaze across the ballroom to a waitress. She was nobody. Or she should have been. Mid-20s, dark hair pulled into a practical bun, the kind of tired elegance that came from working double shifts and still maintaining dignity. She moved through the crowd with a tray of champagne, her movements efficient, her expression carefully neutral. But Isabella was staring at her like she'd seen a ghost. Vincent felt something cold slide down his spine. His daughter had never reacted to anyone like this. Not to the nannies, not to the doctors, not even to him on most days. But now she was trembling, her entire body taut with an emotion he couldn't name. The waitress turned, and for a brief moment her eyes met Isabella's across the crowded room. The woman's face didn't change. No recognition. No reaction. She simply continued her route, disappearing into the kitchen service entrance. But Isabella's breathing had changed. Faster. Shallow. Her fingers still locked around Vincent's hand like she was drowning, and he was the only thing keeping her afloat. "Isabella." He crouched down to her level, ignoring the politician mid-sentence. "What is it? What's wrong?" Her lips parted. Vincent's heart stopped. 4 years. 4 years of silence, of specialists telling him to be patient, to give her time, to accept that she might never. But her mouth was moving, forming a shape he'd never seen before, and then, nothing. The moment passed. Her lips closed. The shutdown was so complete it was like watching a door slam shut. Vincent stood slowly, his jaw tight. Around them the party continued, oblivious. Champagne flowed. Deals were made. Nobody noticed that Vincent Corleone's world had just tilted on its axis. "Get the car," he said into his phone, his voice flat. "We're leaving." But as he guided Isabella toward the exit, her head turned, tracking something through the crowd. Vincent followed her gaze and saw the waitress again, this time near their assigned table, setting down fresh glasses with mechanical precision. And Isabella pulled. Actually pulled against his hand, trying to go toward her. Vincent's blood went cold. Because in that moment his daughter, his silent, unreachable daughter, looked more alive than she had in 4 years. The question wasn't why. The question was, what did that waitress have that could wake the dead? And more terrifyingly, what would Vincent have to do to find out? Vincent didn't leave. Every instinct screamed at him to grab Isabella and disappear into the night. But he'd built an empire on reading people, on understanding leverage, and right now his daughter was giving him information more valuable than any intercepted phone call. She wanted to stay near that waitress. So he made a decision that went against every protective impulse he had. He walked them both to their assigned table, table 7 reserved for the biggest donors, and sat down with Isabella beside him. The waitress appeared within seconds, her tray balanced perfectly, her smile the kind that never reached the eyes. Professional. Detached. She set down water glasses without looking at anyone directly. "Can I get you anything else?" Her voice was lower than he expected. Rougher. Like she'd spent years learning not to care. Vincent opened his mouth, but Isabella moved first. His daughter slid out of her chair and stood directly in front of the waitress, those dark eyes, his eyes, staring up with an intensity that made the woman pause mid-reach for an empty plate. For 3 seconds nobody moved. The waitress crouched down slowly, bringing herself to Isabella's eye level. Not the way adults usually did with children. Not condescending or overly cheerful. He just looked at her. Really looked. "Hey," the waitress said quietly. "You okay?" Isabella didn't answer. Of course she didn't. But she didn't look away either. Vincent watched something flicker across the waitress's face. Not recognition but something else. Concern maybe. Or curiosity. She glanced up at Vincent and he saw her assess him in half a second. Expensive suit, dangerous eyes, the kind of man who owned rooms just by entering them. Her expression shuddered immediately. "I'll be back to check on you," she said, standing abruptly. She was gone before Vincent could say a word. But Isabella turned and climbed back into her chair, and for the first time in months, there was color in her cheeks. Vincent pulled out his phone under the table and typed a single message to Dimitri. "Table 7 waitress. Everything." No. The response came back in 90 seconds. Jade Ripley. 26. Been working Meridian events for 8 months. No criminal record. No connections. Lives alone West Side. What more? Everything, Vincent typed back. He looked at his daughter. Isabella was tracking the waitress's movements through the ballroom with laser focus, her rabbit forgotten on the table. This wasn't normal. None of this was normal. Vincent had spent 4 years trying to reach his daughter. 4 years of expensive specialists and gentle coaxing and silent bedtime stories she never responded to. He'd accepted that whatever had broken inside her the night her mother died might never heal. But this woman, this nobody waitress with tired eyes and careful distance, had cracked something open in 5 seconds. The question was why. And Vincent Corleone always got his answers. Jade felt the weight of eyes on her back and hated it. She'd perfected the art of invisibility. Move fast, smile less, never make eye contact long enough for anyone to remember your face. It was the only way to survive these events where people wore more money than she'd earn in a year and treated staff like decorative furniture. But that little girl. Something about those eyes had punched through Jade's carefully constructed walls. She'd seen plenty of rich kids at these things, spoiled, loud, demanding. But this one was different. Silent. Watchful. And looking at Jade like she was searching for something she'd lost. It made Jade's chest ache in a way she couldn't afford. "You could." Marcus from the kitchen staff appeared beside her with a tray of appetizers. "Fine." Jade grabbed champagne flutes and turned back toward the ballroom. Just ready for this night to be over. "Heard that. Hey, did you see the guy at table 7? That's Vincent Corleone." Jade's hands didn't shake. She'd learned not to let them. So he basically runs half the city. Charitable donations are just how he cleans the money. Marcus lowered his voice. "My cousin works security at one of his clubs. Says Corleone's not someone you want noticing you." Too late, Jade thought. But she just shrugged. "Then I'll make sure he doesn't." She delivered drinks to 3 other tables before circling back to table 7, telling herself it was just her rotation, just her job. Nothing to do with the little girl who'd looked at her like what? Like she knew her? Impossible. Jade had never seen that child before in her life. But when she approached the table again, the girl's head snapped toward her immediately, and Jade felt that same strange pull. Recognition without reason. Familiarity without history. Vincent Corleone was watching her now too, his expression unreadable but his attention absolute. The kind of attention that meant danger. Jade had spent 3 years building a life where nobody looked at her twice. Where she could save money and plan her escape from a past she'd rather die than revisit. And now this. More water, she asked, her voice steady despite the warning bells screaming in her head. Sit down, Vincent said. Jade blinked. Excuse me. Sit. Just for a moment. It wasn't a request. Every instinct told her to refuse, to walk away, to remember that men like him were exactly why she'd learned to disappear. But the little girl was staring at her with those impossibly dark eyes, and Jade found herself pulling out a chair before she could think better of it. I don't have long, she said. Hi, supervisor. Won't say a word. Vincent's tone made it clear he'd already ensured that. My daughter seems interested in you. Jade looked at Isabella. The girl's small hand had moved across the table, fingers stretching toward Jade like she wanted to touch her but didn't quite dare. I'm sorry, Jade said carefully. But I don't know why. Vincent leaned forward slightly. Neither do I. That's what concerns me. And in that moment, Jade understood she'd just become part of something she didn't want any piece of. She stood abruptly. I should get back to work. But as she walked away she felt it, that little girl's eyes following her like a compass pointing north. Like she'd finally found something she'd been searching for her whole life. And Jade had no idea why that terrified her more than anything else. The scream shattered the ballroom's elegant veneer at exactly 9:47 p.m. Not a polite gasp or startled cry. A raw, primal shriek that cut through champagne-fueled conversations and string quartet melodies like a blade. Jade dropped her tray. She was halfway across the ballroom when her brain caught up to her body, when she realized she was running toward table 7, toward the sound, toward Isabella. The little girl was on the floor, convulsing. Her body rigid, eyes rolled back, that horrible keening sound tearing from her throat. The first sound she'd made in 4 years, and it was agony. Vincent was already there, gathering her into his arms, his face drained of color. Call Dr. Rosen. Now, he barked at someone, Dimitri, the man who'd been hovering near their table all evening. But Isabella's hands were clawing at the air, fighting against her father's hold, and Jade didn't think. She just moved. She dropped to her knees beside them, and Isabella's wild eyes found her instantly. The screaming stopped. Stopped. Isabella's small hands shot out and grabbed Jade's wrist with shocking strength, her breathing ragged but her body suddenly still. She stared at Jade with desperate intensity, lips trembling, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Hey, it's okay, Jade heard herself saying, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'm right here. You're safe. Vincent was staring at her like she'd performed a miracle. Around them, the crowd had formed a loose circle, murmuring, phones already out recording what would be tomorrow's social media sensation. Get them out of here, Vincent snapped at Dimitri, gesturing at the onlookers. Then his attention snapped back to Jade. Don't move. Isabella's grip on Jade's wrist tightened. Her mouth opened again, working around a shape, and this time, Ma. The sound was broken, raw. Ma. The entire room went silent. Mama. Isabella said it clearly this time, pointing at Jade with her free hand, tears streaming down her small face. Mama. Jade's blood turned to ice. No, this wasn't, she couldn't be. I'm not, Jade started, but Isabella was pulling herself into Jade's arms now, small body shaking with sobs, and every maternal instinct Jade had spent years burying came roaring to the surface. She found herself holding the child, one hand cradling the back of Isabella's head, the other wrapped protectively around her small frame. Shoo, it's okay, you're okay, she whispered, and hated how natural it felt. Vincent was on his feet, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. But his eyes never left Jade. Never left his daughter in a stranger's arms, calling her mama. Dr. Rosen arrived in 8 minutes. An older man with kind eyes and the bearing of someone used to dealing with Vincent Corleone's emergencies. He examined Isabella gently, but the moment he tried to separate her from Jade, the girl's breathing spiked into panic. Don't, Vincent said sharply. Leave her. The doctor straightened. This is highly irregular. I don't care. Vincent's voice was steel. She's speaking. For the first time in 4 years, my daughter is speaking. He turned to Jade and she saw something dangerous flickering in his dark eyes. "We need to talk. Privately." "I have to get back to work," Jade said even as Isabella's fingers twisted into her uniform shirt. "You're done for the night." Vincent pulled out his phone and made a call. 20 seconds later, Jade's supervisor appeared, nodded once at whatever Vincent said and disappeared without a word. Money talks. Power commands. Jade was trapped. The private room Vincent led them to was off the main ballroom. Some kind of VIP lounge with leather couches and crystal decanters that probably cost more than Jade's car. Dimitri stood outside the door like a sentinel. Isabella refused to let go of Jade. Vincent poured himself 2 fingers of scotch and downed it in one swallow before turning to face them. "Who are you?" "I already told you." "Jade Ripley. I'm just a waitress." "Don't." His voice was soft, but it carried the weight of bodies buried in the dark. "Don't lie to me. My daughter hasn't spoken a word since she was 6 months old. Not one sound. And tonight she calls you Mama." He took a step closer. "So I'll ask again, who are you?" "I don't know." Jade's composure finally cracked. "I've never seen her before. I don't understand this any more than you do." Isabella whimpered against Jade's shoulder, and Jade automatically tightened her hold, swaying slightly the way you do with frightened children. The way she'd sworn she'd never do again. Vincent watched this with razor focus. "You're lying. Maybe not about knowing her, but about something." Jade's throat tightened. "My past is my business." "Not anymore." Vincent pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. "Jade Ripley. 26. No family, no close relationships. You appeared in this city 3 years ago with a paperwork trail that's just a little too clean. You work 3 jobs, live in a studio apartment, and according to your bank records, you're saving money like you're planning to run." The room tilted. "You had no right." "I have every right when it comes to my daughter." He pocketed the phone. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth about who you are and why my daughter recognizes you. And in exchange I'll make sure whatever you're running from never finds you." It was a trap. A gilded, dangerous trap. "And if I refuse?" Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then I'll find out anyway. But it'll be messy. And you seem like someone who prefers things clean." Isabella stirred in Jade's arms, her small voice muffled against Jade's neck. "Mama, stay." 2 words that changed everything. Because Jade knew, with horrible sinking certainty, that she couldn't walk away from this child. Not when Isabella looked at her like she was drowning and Jade was air. But staying meant opening doors she'd nailed shut. Meant facing the one thing she'd spent 3 years running from. "I need time," Jade said finally. "You have 24 hours, Vincent replied. "Tomorrow night. My house. You'll tell me everything." "Or what?" His expression darkened. "Or I'll assume you're a threat. And I eliminate threats." It wasn't a negotiation. It was a sentence. And as Jade looked down at Isabella, at this little girl who'd somehow found the one word that could destroy them both, she realized the truth. She wasn't going to run this time. She couldn't. Not when those dark eyes looked at her like coming home. Jade didn't sleep that night. She sat in her cramped studio apartment, staring at the shoebox under her bed, the one thing she'd kept from before. The thing she'd promised herself she'd never open again. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. Inside, a single photograph yellowed at the edges. A woman with Jade's eyes and darker hair, holding a newborn wrapped in pink. The back read in faded ink, "Elena and baby, St. Catherine's Hospital." Jade had spent 3 years trying to forget that woman's face. That name. Elena Marchetti. Her sister. The next morning, Dimitri appeared at Jade's apartment at exactly 7 a.m. with coffee and an envelope. "Mr. Corleone thought you might need this," he said, his accent thick, his expression unreadable. Inside the envelope, $5,000 in cash and a burner phone with one number programmed. Jade's pride screamed at her to throw it back in his face. But pride didn't pay rent or buy plane tickets to nowhere. "Tell him I'll be there tonight," she said instead. Dimitri nodded. "The car will come at 8. He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I've worked for Mr. Corleone for 12 years. I've never seen Isabella respond to anyone the way she responded to you. Whatever this is, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe. Or maybe it was the worst thing that could happen to all of them." Vincent spent the morning in his office, drinking espresso and reading Dimitri's expanded report on Jade Ripley. Except that wasn't her real name. 3 years ago, a woman named Jade Marchetti had disappeared from St. Catherine's, a psychiatric facility upstate. Patient records were sealed, but Vincent had people who could unseal anything for the right price. Jade Marchetti, admitted at age 23 for severe psychological trauma and dissociative episodes. Before that she'd been a pediatric nurse. Before that she'd had a sister, Elena Marchetti. Vincent's blood ran cold as he read the next line. Elena Marchetti had died 4 years ago. Childbirth complications at St. Catherine's Hospital. The baby had survived. The baby had survived. He reached for his phone with trembling hands and pulled up Isabella's birth certificate. Mother, Elena Corleone née Marchetti. Father, Vincent Corleone. His wife had used her married name at the hospital. But her maiden name, Marchetti. Vincent's world tilted. He'd known Elena had a sister, estranged she'd said. They hadn't spoken in years. Elena had been vague about the reasons and Vincent hadn't pushed. He'd respected her privacy. Now he wondered what that silence had cost them. He called Dr. Rosen. I need to know everything about my wife's medical history. Everything from the pregnancy. Vincent, you know patient confidentiality. I don't care about confidentiality. My daughter just spoke for the first time in 4 years and I need to know why. His voice dropped. Elena had a sister. Twin sister. Did you know that? The silence on the other end was answer enough. She made me promise not to tell you, Dr. Rosen said finally. Said it would complicate things. But yes, Elena had an identical twin. Jade. They had some kind of falling out years before you met Elena. Something about their parents' death, an inheritance dispute. Elena never gave me details. Vincent's mind raced. Identical twins. Isabella had been 6 months old when Elena died. Old enough to recognize her mother's face. Old enough to remember. And last night she'd seen that face again. There's more, Dr. Rosen continued, his voice heavy. When Elena went into labor there were complications. She lost a lot of blood. In her delirium she kept calling for Jade. Begging for her sister. I tried to locate her but... He trailed off. Elena died asking for her. And you were so destroyed, Vincent. I didn't want to add to your pain with a sister who'd never come. Vincent ended the call and stared at Isabella's baby photos on his desk. His daughter didn't remember her mother. She remembered her mother's face. And last night she'd seen it again, on a stranger who was actually the aunt she'd never known. Question was, did Jade know? Did she know Isabella was her niece? Or was this reunion as shocking to her as it was to him? Jade arrived at Vincent's estate at exactly 8 p.m., her heart hammering against her ribs. The house wasn't a house, it was a fortress disguised as elegance. Iron gates, security cameras, men in suits stationed at strategic points. The kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. Dimitri led her through marble hallways to a private study where Vincent waited, a glass of wine in his hand and fire burning in the hearth despite the warm evening. Isabella sat on the carpet playing with wooden blocks. The moment Jade entered, the little girl's head snapped up. Mama! She scrambled to her feet and ran, to Jade, wrapping her small arms around Jade's legs. Jade's throat closed. She looked at Vincent over Isabella's head and saw knowledge in his eyes. He knew. Sit, Vincent said quietly. Jade lowered herself onto the leather couch, and Isabella immediately climbed into her lap, curling against her chest like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Elena Marchetti, Vincent said. Your sister. Jade's eyes burned. Yes. Why didn't you come to the funeral? Because I didn't know she was dead. Jade's voice cracked. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. I was in a facility. By the time I got out she'd been gone for months. I tried to find out what happened to her baby but the records were sealed. I thought, she swallowed hard. I thought Elena's husband took the child. I thought she was safe. I'm Elena's husband. Vincent's words were stones dropping into still water. Jade's head snapped up. No. Elena married someone named Vincent Corleone. You're a criminal. Yes. His smile was bitter. Elena knew what I was. He loved me anyway. And when she died she took half my soul with her. The room pulsed with grief. 2 people who'd loved the same woman, mourning in different languages. Isabella is your niece, Vincent continued. And somehow she remembered. Babies can recognize faces, especially in their first year. She knew her mother's face. And last night she saw it again. Jade looked down at Isabella, at her sister's daughter, and felt 4 years of carefully constructed walls crumble to dust. I'm not her mother, she whispered. No, Vincent agreed. But you're the closest thing she has. And there was the trap closing. The choice that wasn't a choice. What do you want from me? Jade asked. Vincent leaned forward and she saw desperation behind the dangerous exterior. I want you to stay. Help her. He's speaking now because of you. I can't lose that. I can't lose her to silence again. For how long? As long as it takes. Jade should have said no. Should have run. But Isabella's small hand was curled in her shirt, and when Jade looked down, the little girl was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time since Jade had met her. Okay, Jade heard herself say. I'll stay. Vincent's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. Neither of them saw the danger coming. Neither of them knew that Elena's death hadn't been an accident. And that bringing Jade into their lives would wake the very monsters they'd thought were buried. 2 weeks passed in a strange, fragile peace. Jade moved into the estate's guest wing, a suite larger than her entire apartment, and fell into a rhythm with Isabella that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The little girl followed her everywhere, chattering now in broken sentences, reaching for Jade's hand like it was a lifeline. Vincent watched them with an expression Jade couldn't read. Gratitude, yes. But something darker lurked beneath. Something hungry. You're good with her, he said one evening, finding Jade on the terrace after Isabella had fallen asleep. She makes it easy. Jade accepted the wine he offered, hyper-aware of the space between them. 2 feet. Close enough to feel dangerous. Elena used to sit here, Vincent said quietly. She'd watch the sunset and tell me about the life she wanted for our daughter. Horses. Piano lessons. Normal things. He laughed, but it was hollow. She knew what I was. But she believed Isabella could be different. Jade's chest ached. Elena always believed in impossible things. Tell me about her. About before. Vincent turned to face her fully. I only had 2 years with her. You had a lifetime. So Jade did. She told him about their childhood. 2 girls who'd looked identical but couldn't have been more different. Elena the dreamer. Jade the protector. How they'd lost their parents in a car crash when they were 20. How Elena had gotten the inheritance, the trust fund their father left. How Jade had. She stopped. How you had what? Vincent pressed. Nothing. Just, we had a fight. About money, about choices. Stupid sister things. The lie tasted bitter. Vincent's eyes narrowed, but he didn't push. Not then. The truth came 3 days later, delivered by a ghost. Jade was giving Isabella a bath when Dimitri appeared at the bathroom door, his face ashen. Mr. Corleone needs you. Now. Something in his tone made Jade's blood freeze. She wrapped Isabella in a towel and followed him downstairs to Vincent's office, where 2 men in suits stood flanking a third figure. A woman. Mid-50s, expensively dressed, with cold eyes that locked onto Jade with immediate recognition. Well, the woman said, her voice dripping venom. Elena's little sister. I wondered when you'd surface. Vincent stood behind his desk, his expression carved from ice. Jade, this is Margaret Castellano. She was Elena's mother-in-law. He paused. From her first marriage. The room tilted. What? Jade's voice came out strangled. Margaret's smile was cruel. Oh, she didn't tell you? How delicious. He turned to Vincent. Did you know your precious Elena was married before? To my son Anthony. They had a daughter together. No, this wasn't. That's impossible, Jade whispered. Elena never told you? Margaret laughed. Elena was very good at keeping secrets. She married my son when she was 21. Had a baby girl at 22. And then when Anthony died in a car accident, she made air quotes, her eyes boring into Vincent. She took my granddaughter and disappeared. Vincent's knuckles were white against the desk. What are you saying? I'm saying that Isabella isn't your daughter, Mr. Corleone. Margaret pulled out a folder and slapped it on the desk. DNA test. Court documents. Birth certificate. The baby Elena was carrying when she met you wasn't yours. She was already pregnant. Already had a child. My granddaughter. The world stopped spinning. Jade stared at the documents, at the birth certificate dated 5 years ago. Not 4. At the DNA results showing no biological connection between Vincent and Isabella. At the photograph of Elena younger, holding a newborn. A different newborn. The same dark eyes. She lied to you, Margaret continued, relishing every word. She let you believe Isabella was yours. Let you fall in love with another man's child. And now, she turned to Jade, now she's dead and I want my granddaughter back. No. The word came from Jade before she could think. Absolutely not. You have no legal right. Neither do you. Vincent's voice cut through the room like a blade. Isabella is mine. I raised her. I'm on her birth certificate. Elena made me her father in every way that matters. Except biologically. Margaret's smile sharpened. And when my lawyers are done, the court will agree that a mafia boss has no business raising a Castellano heir. Especially when there's family willing to provide a proper home. He meant it. Jade could see it in her eyes. This wasn't about love or family. It was about control. About owning something of Elena's, something she could mold and manipulate. Get out, Vincent said softly. Dangerously. I'll be back with the authorities. And a court order. Margaret moved toward the door then paused. Oh, and Jade? You might want to ask yourself why your sister really gave you up. Why she took that inheritance money and left you rotting in that facility. Her eyes glittered. Elena wasn't the saint you remember. She was a survivor. And she'd do anything, lie to anyone, to protect what was hers. The door closed behind her with a final click. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Vincent sank into his chair, his face gray. She lied to me. For years. She let me believe. His voice cracked. Jade's mind was racing. Elena had been married before. Had a daughter before. And never told her. Never reached out when Jade was locked away, grieving their parents alone. Why? The inheritance, Jade said suddenly. Elena got everything when our parents died. The trust, the estate, all of it. I was in the facility because, she stopped, the memory cutting like glass. Because I tried to kill myself after they died. I was hospitalized and Elena, she never visited. Never called. She just took the money and disappeared. Vincent looked at her. You think she abandoned you? I know she did. Tears burned Jade's eyes. I thought it was because she couldn't handle seeing me like that. But what if it was more? What if she was already running from something? From someone? From the Castellanos, Vincent said grimly. Anthony Castellano died in a car accident 4 years ago. Right before Elena showed up at my club, pregnant with no past and a fake name. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Elena hadn't been running from grief. She'd been running from Margaret. From a family that wanted to control her child. And she'd used Vincent, his power, his protection, his love, as a shield. Isabella, Jade breathed. We have to. She was already moving, already running toward the stairs, Vincent right behind her. But when they reached Isabella's room, it was empty. The window stood open. The curtains billowed in the breeze. And on the bed, written in a child's clumsy handwriting on a piece of paper. Mama, come find me. Margaret Castellano hadn't come to negotiate. She'd come to distract them while someone took Isabella. And now the little girl who'd just learned to speak was gone. Vincent's world reduced to 3 things. The empty room, the note in his trembling hand, and the woman standing beside him who looked like the ghost of his dead wife. How long? His voice was barely human. Jade turned to him, confusion flickering across her face. What? How long have you been working with them? Vincent's hand moved to the gun at his back. Muscle memory, survival instinct. Margaret shows up with documents you conveniently never mentioned. Isabella gets taken the same night. And you? His voice cracked with something between rage and devastation. You show up out of nowhere after 3 years, right when Isabella needs to be claimed by the Castellanos. The color drained from Jade's face. You think I'm part of this? I think Elena kept secrets. I think you kept secrets. Vincent's gun stayed holstered, but his finger twitched near it. I think my daughter is gone because I was stupid enough to trust someone who looks exactly like the woman who lied to me for 2 years. She's my niece. Is she? Vincent pulled out his phone, showing her Margaret's documents. Because according to this, Elena had Isabella before she even met you after your parents died. Which means you never knew this child existed. Never had a relationship with her. So why would she call you Mama, Jade? Why would a 4-year-old girl who's never met you recognize you instantly unless someone told her to? The accusation hung in the air like poison. Jade's hands clenched into fists. You bastard. You think I'd hurt a child? You think I'd be part of kidnapping her? I think people do terrible things for money. And Margaret mentioned that inheritance Elena took. Vincent's eyes were dead. How much did she pay you? How much to play the loving aunt, get close to Isabella, make it easier to take her? The slap came so fast Vincent didn't see it coming. Jade's palm cracked across his face with enough force to snap his head sideways. When he looked back, tears streamed down her cheeks. Not sadness, pure fury. I spent 3 years in a psychiatric facility because watching my parents die broke something inside me I couldn't fix, she said, her voice shaking. Elena took that money and disappeared while I was learning how to want to live again. I came to this city with nothing. No family, no past, no hope, and built a life from scratch because I refused to be a victim anymore. She took a step closer, fearless despite the dangerous man in front of her. That little girl looked at me and called me Mama, and for the first time in 4 years I felt like maybe I wasn't completely broken. Like maybe I could be someone's safe place the way no one was mine. Another step. So don't you dare, accuse me of hurting her when she's the only thing that's made me feel human since Elena left me to rot. Vincent's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But trust had cost him everything once before. Then prove it, he said coldly. Tell me everything. Every secret Elena kept. Every reason Margaret Castellano would think you'd help her. I don't know. Jade's composure shattered completely. I don't know what Elena did or why she did it. She cut me out of her life and I spent 3 years trying to figure out what I did wrong. And now she's dead and her daughter is missing, and you're looking at me like I'm the enemy when I... She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. Vincent's phone buzzed. Dimitri. Security footage shows 2 cars. Margaret left alone. But someone else was watching the house. Black SUV, no plates. Left 5 minutes after Isabella's window opened. Vincent's blood went cold. He pulled up the security feed, rewinding to the moment before they discovered Isabella missing. There. A figure scaling the side of the house. Too small to be one of Margaret's usual enforcers. Too quick to be amateur. He zoomed in on the face caught in the camera's edge. And his world stopped. Because he recognized her. Surgeon. One of his own. The woman he'd hired 8 months ago to work security. The woman who'd passed every background check, every test. The woman who'd been in his house around his daughter every single day. It wasn't Margaret, Vincent breathed. Jade looked up. What? Margaret was a distraction. Someone else took Isabella. He pulled up Sarah's file, his hands shaking. Someone who's been inside this house for months. Someone who knew exactly when and how to move. His phone rang. Unknown number. Vincent answered, putting it on speaker. Hello, Vincent. The voice was female, cold, efficient. I assume you've noticed your daughter is missing. Who is this? Someone Elena should have paid when she had the chance. Pause. She stole something from us 4 years ago. Something worth considerably more than a child's life. And now you're going to help us get it back. Vincent's mind raced. What did she steal? Information. Names. Account numbers. Elena worked for us before she worked for you, Vincent. Before the Castellanos, before her fairy tale escape. She was one of our best, until she decided to play hero and copy our entire client database. Jade's face had gone sheet white. You're lying, Vincent said. Elena was a civilian. She had no connections. Elena Marchetti was a ghost. A cleaner. She made problems disappear for very wealthy, very dangerous people. And when she got pregnant with Anthony Castellano's baby, she saw her chance to retire. So she took our insurance policy, every transaction, every name, every dirty secret, and vanished. The woman's voice hardened. But insurance expires, Mr. Corleone. And Elena's protection died with her. Now you have 48 hours to find what she hid, or Isabella Castellano, yes, that's her real name, will disappear just like her mother's secrets. The line went dead. Vincent stood frozen, his entire understanding of reality crumbling. Elena hadn't been running from Margaret. She'd been running from something far worse. And she'd hidden the evidence somewhere even Vincent couldn't find it. Jade's voice was barely a whisper. What have we done? The study felt like a tomb. Jade paced the length of it, her mind spinning through every conversation she'd ever had with Elena, every letter, every phone call before the silence. Vincent sat at his desk pulling up files, security footage, bank records, anything that might tell him who his wife really was. She never told me about any of this, Jade said for the third time. I would have known. Sisters know. You hadn't spoken to her in 2 years before she died. Vincent's voice was flat, but the edge had softened. The accusation from earlier hung between them like smoke, but desperation was burning it away. People change. Especially when they're running. Jade stopped pacing. The inheritance. Vincent looked up. When our parents died, Elena got everything. The house, the trust fund, all of it. I was in the facility, so legally she was the only one who could access it. Jade's hands trembled. But the amount, it was almost $2 million. I never understood why she needed it all. Why she wouldn't even help with my medical bills. Because she was buying her way out, Vincent said quietly. She used your parents' money to disappear. To create a new identity. To protect Isabella from whatever organization she'd stolen from. But if she had their information, their database, why didn't she use it? Why didn't she leverage it to protect herself? Vincent's jaw tightened. Because Elena was smart. She knew the moment she used it, they'd come for her. So she hid it. Made herself worthless dead. He stood abruptly. But she'd need a failsafe. Somewhere safe, somewhere no one would look. Their eyes met across the room. The facility, they said simultaneously. Jade's heart hammered. St. Catherine's. Where she had Isabella. Where I was a patient. She pressed her hands to her temples. Oh God. Elena visited me once. Just once, about 6 months before she died. She was pregnant, huge, and she looked terrified. She asked me about my storage unit there, the one where they kept patients' personal belongings. What did you tell her? That I'd never cleaned it out. That my things were still there, boxed up, forgotten. Jade's eyes widened. She asked for my key. Said she wanted to get some old photos for me, memories from before. I gave it to her because she was my sister and I missed her and I was so desperate for her to stay. Vincent was already moving, grabbing his coat. How far is St. Catherine's? 2 hours north. But Vincent, they won't just let us. They will. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd moved mountains with threats and money. Get in the car. Dimitri appeared in the doorway before Vincent could reach it. Boss, we have a problem. Unless it's about Isabella's location, I don't care. It's about the woman who called. We traced the number. Dimitri's face was grim. It bounced through 6 countries, but the origin point was local. He's here. In the city. Vincent's blood turned cold. Where? The Castellano estate. The world tilted. Margaret, Jade breathed. She's working with them. Or she's their next victim. Vincent's mind raced through scenarios, each darker than the last. If they think Margaret has access to what Elena hid. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Another call. This time a video. Isabella appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a bedroom. Expensive furniture, soft lighting, nothing overtly threatening. But her eyes were red from crying and her small voice cracked when she spoke. Papa? Mama? She hiccuped. The lady says you have to find Mommy's treasure. She says if you don't, I have to go away forever like Mommy did. The video cut to a woman's face. Not Sarah Chin, someone older, elegant, with ice-chip eyes. 46 hours now, Mr. Corleone. The clock is ticking. And just so we're clear, the camera panned to show Margaret Castellano tied to a chair, her mouth gagged, terror in her eyes. I don't make empty threats. Elena stole from the wrong people. Now you get to pay her debt. The call ended. Jade's legs nearly gave out. Vincent caught her arm, steadying her, and for a moment they just stood there. 2 people drowning in the wreckage of a dead woman's secrets. We go to St. Catherine's, Vincent said. We find whatever Elena hid. And we get Isabella back. And if it's not there? His eyes met hers and she saw the truth he wouldn't speak aloud. Then we're all dead. But then something shifted in his expression. Something calculating. Elena loved you, he said quietly. Even after everything, even after the silence, she came to see you when she was pregnant. She trusted you with her key. So maybe she left you more than just access to a storage unit. Vincent pulled up Elena's hospital records on his phone. When she died, she was delirious. Dr. Rosen said she kept calling for you, begging for her sister. Jade's throat tightened. I wasn't there. But what if she was trying to tell you something? What if in those final moments she was trying to give you the answer? He scrolled through the medical notes. Look, the night she died, she kept repeating a phrase. Dr. Rosen documented it but thought it was just delirium. He turned the phone toward Jade. Patient repeatedly saying, Jade knows where the rabbit sleeps. Tell Jade the rabbit always sleeps in the garden. Jade's world stopped. The rabbit. Isabella's stuffed rabbit. The one she carried everywhere. The one that had been with her since birth. Oh my God, Jade whispered. It's not in the storage unit. It's in the rabbit. Vincent was already calling Dimitri. Get to Isabella's room. Find that stuffed rabbit. Tear it apart if you have to. 3 minutes later, Dimitri called back. Boss. The rabbit's gone. It was in Isabella's room, but now. He paused. It's gone. Someone took it. Vincent's hand tightened around the phone until Jade thought it would shatter. Because suddenly they understood. Isabella hadn't been kidnapped for ransom. She'd been kidnapped because she was carrying the evidence. And whoever had her now had everything. The revelation hit like a bullet. Isabella has it, Jade said, her voice barely above a whisper. She's had it this whole time. Vincent's face had gone pale. That rabbit never leaves her side. Elena made sure of it. She told me it was Isabella's comfort object, that taking it away would traumatize her further. His laugh was hollow, broken. She wasn't protecting Isabella's feelings. She was protecting the evidence. Dimitri's voice crackled through the phone. What do you want me to do? Pull every piece of footage from the last 48 hours. I want to know exactly when that rabbit went missing and who took it. Vincent's mind was already 3 steps ahead. And get me everything we have on the woman from the video. Cross-reference with Elena's known associates from before we met. He ended the call and turned to Jade. They don't know what they have yet. If they did, Isabella would already be dead and they'd be gone. The words made Jade's stomach lurch, but Vincent was right. Whoever had taken Isabella thought the evidence was hidden somewhere they needed Vincent to find. They didn't realize the 4-year-old they'd kidnapped was literally holding their entire operation in her arms. So we have an advantage, Jade said, forcing herself to think clearly. They need us. They need whatever Elena hid. Which means we negotiate. Vincent pulled out his phone. But first, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. He made a call. It was answered on the first ring. Marcus. Vincent's voice was controlled, but Jade heard the razor edge beneath. I need a favor. The kind that stays off the books. Whoever Marcus was, he asked no questions. Vincent rattled off a name, the woman from the video. And within 10 minutes, information started flooding in. Victoria Strand. Former intelligence operative turned private contractor. Specialized in retrieving sensitive information for governments and criminal organizations who couldn't afford official channels. Her client list read like a who's who of international crime, but she'd never been caught, never been charged, never left a trace. Until Elena Marchetti had stolen her entire database 4 years ago. Elena didn't just take random information, Vincent said, reading through the files. She took Strand's insurance policy. Every client, every job, every payment. If that information went public, it would destroy hundreds of powerful people, Jade finished. Politicians, CEOs, crime bosses. Anyone who'd ever used Strand's services. And Strand would be dead within 24 hours. Vincent's eyes were dark. Elena didn't steal for money. She stole for protection. As long as that information stayed hidden, Strand couldn't touch her without risking exposure. But Elena's dead now. Exactly. The protection expired. Vincent stood pacing. Strand waited. Watched. Let me raise Isabella as my own. Let us build a life. All while waiting for the moment she could take everything back without consequences. Jade's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. TikTok Aunt Jade. 44 hours left. Hope you're making progress. Attached was another photo of Isabella, still holding her rabbit, still looking terrified but unharmed. They're watching us, Jade breathed. Vincent's jaw tightened. Good. Let them watch. He pulled out his own phone and made a call that Jade knew, with absolute certainty, was going to change everything. This is Vincent Corleone. I'm calling in every favor I'm owed. Every single one. His voice carried the weight of an empire. I want Victoria Strand's location. I want eyes on every property she owns, every vehicle she drives, every person she's contacted in the last week. And I want it in 1 hour. He paused, listening. I don't care what it costs. My daughter's life is worth more than money. Another pause. No, not just my money. Tell them if they help me get Isabella back, I'll give them what Elena hid. Every name, every transaction, every secret Victoria Strand has collected over 20 years. Jade's eyes widened. Vincent, you can't. He held up a hand. 1 hour, he said into the phone and ended the call. Are you insane? Jade grabbed his arm. If you give them that information, you'll have every criminal organization in the world coming after you. Only if I actually give it to them. Vincent's smile was sharp, dangerous. Right now they think I know where it is. They think I can access it. That's leverage, Jade. That's how I keep Isabella alive long enough to get her back. And when they realize you're bluffing? Then we better make sure we're not bluffing. He turned to face her fully. You said Elena visited you at St. Catherine's. That she asked about your storage unit. What else did she say? What else did she do? Jade forced herself to think back to that day, 6 months before Elena died, when she'd appeared at the facility looking exhausted and terrified and 7 months pregnant. She was crying, Jade said slowly. She kept apologizing. Said she'd made mistakes, that she'd done things she wasn't proud of. She said, Jade's breath caught. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should look in the place where we buried our secrets. Vincent went still. What does that mean? When we were kids, Elena and I had this spot. Our parents' garden. There was an old oak tree with a hollow in the trunk and we'd hide things there. Notes, treasures, things we didn't want anyone else to find. Jade's eyes widened. Your estate. You said Elena loved the garden. That she'd sit there and watch the sunset. The oak tree, Vincent breathed. There's a massive oak in the east garden. Elena had it specially maintained. She said it reminded her of home. They were moving before the words finished leaving his mouth, racing through the mansion toward the gardens, Dimitri and 2 other guards falling in behind them. The oak tree stood like a sentinel in the fading light, its massive trunk gnarled and ancient. Vincent pulled out a flashlight, scanning the bark for any sign of a hollow, any indication that. There. Jade pointed to a section about 4 feet up, barely visible beneath the bark. A small carved heart, weathered but still recognizable. The same heart Elena used to carve into everything as a teenager. Vincent reached inside the hollow and pulled out a waterproof package. Inside, a thumb drive. And a letter addressed to Jade. Jade's hands shook as she unfolded it. Jade, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. I never told you the truth about who I was or what I did before I had Isabella. I was scared you'd hate me, scared you'd try to stop me, scared I'd put you in danger just by existing in your life. I took Mom and Dad's money not because I wanted to abandon you, but because I needed to disappear. I'd gotten involved with people who don't let you walk away. And when I got pregnant with Anthony's baby, I saw my chance. I stole something from them, insurance I called it. Information that would destroy them if it ever got out. I hid the original in Isabella's rabbit. Sewn into the stuffing. I figured no one would ever think to look there and it would stay with her always. Safe. But this drive is a copy. My backup. I'm leaving it in our old spot because if something happens to me, you're the only person I trust to know what to do with it. The man raising Isabella, Vincent, he's a good man. Better than I deserve. He loves her completely and he'll protect her with everything he has. But if Victoria Strand ever finds out what I took, she'll come for my baby. So if you're reading this, if I'm gone and Isabella's in danger, you have a choice. Give Victoria what she wants and pray she keeps her word. Or release everything to the authorities and watch the whole corrupt system burn. I couldn't make that choice. I was too much of a coward. But you, Jade, you were always the brave one. I love you. I'm sorry. And thank you for being the mother Isabella deserves, even though I never gave you the chance to be her aunt. Elena. Jade couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The letter blurred as tears streamed down her face. Vincent's phone rang. Marcus. I found her. Strand's holding Isabella at the old Castellano warehouse on the docks. But boss, Marcus's voice dropped. She's not alone. She's got at least 20 armed operatives. This isn't a rescue mission. It's a war. Vincent looked at Jade. At the thumb drive in her hand. At the choice Elena had left them. Then we start a war, he said quietly. Jade wiped her tears and stood straighter. What do you need me to do? I need you to trust me. Vincent held out his hand. And I need you to be ready to burn the world down to get our daughter back. Our daughter. Not his. Not Elena's. Ours. Jade took his hand and together they walked back toward the house to plan an assault that would either save Isabella or destroy them all. Behind them, Elena's letter fluttered to the ground, her final words a blessing and a curse. Be the mother Isabella deserves. And Jade intended to be exactly that, even if it meant becoming the monster Victoria Strand never saw coming. The Castellano warehouse loomed against the night sky like a corpse, all rusted metal and broken windows. Vincent's team assembled in the shadows, 12 of his most trusted men, armed and silent as ghosts. But this wasn't going to be one with bullets alone. This was going to be one with the one thing Victoria Strand couldn't resist. Information. You don't have to do this, Vincent said to Jade as they sat in the back of the SUV, reviewing the plan one final time. I can have Dimitri take you somewhere safe. Somewhere she'll never find you. Jade looked at him like he'd suggested she cut off her own arm. That's my niece in there. Elena's daughter. The little girl who looked at me and saw her mother. Her voice steadied. I'm not running. Not anymore. Vincent studied her face, so similar to Elena's, yet entirely different. Where Elena had been soft edges and quiet secrets, Jade was sharp corners and fierce honesty. Where Elena had run, Jade stood her ground. Elena chose wrong, he said quietly. She should have trusted you from the beginning. Maybe. Jade tucked the thumb drive into her jacket pocket. But she was trying to protect me. That's what big sisters do even when they do it badly. She met his eyes. Now it's my turn to protect what's mine. Dimitri appeared at the window. They're ready, boss. On your signal. Vincent nodded and turned to Jade one last time. If this goes wrong. It won't. But her hand found his in the darkness, squeezed once. We get Isabella back. No matter what. They moved. The warehouse's main floor was a cathedral of shadows and decay. Vincent walked in alone, hands visible, the thumb drive held up like an offering. 20 guns tracked his every movement, red laser sights painting his chest like targeting marks. Victoria Strand stood in the center, Isabella held in front of her like a shield. The little girl wasn't crying, she'd gone silent again, shut down, that terrible absence that had haunted Vincent for 4 years. Except her arms were still wrapped around her rabbit. Mr. Corleone. Victoria's voice echoed through the space. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. I have what you want. Vincent held up the drive. Elena's insurance policy. Every transaction, every client, every secret you've collected over 20 years. It's all here. How do I know it's real? Because Elena was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She knew if she created fake evidence, you'd kill her the moment you discovered it. Vincent took a step forward. 20 guns clicked. He froze. This is the real thing. Verified. Complete. Victoria's eyes narrowed. And you're just going to give it to me? Out of the goodness of your heart. I'm going to give it to you because that little girl means more to me than any amount of leverage. Vincent's voice cracked, and it wasn't entirely an act. Take the drive. Disappear. Let us live in peace. That's all I want. How touching. Victoria's smile was ice. But you see, I have a problem. Even with this drive back in my possession, you and Jade Marchetti now know what Elena knew. You've seen the information. You could recreate it, sell it, use it against me. We'll sign NDAs. We'll disappear ourselves. You'll die. Victoria raised her gun, pointing it at Isabella's head. All of you. It's the only way I sleep soundly. Isabella whimpered, the first sound she'd made, and clutched her rabbit tighter. That's when Jade walked out of the shadows. You're making a mistake, she said calmly, hands up, unarmed. 20 guns swiveled toward her. A really, really stupid mistake. Victoria's attention shifted. Jade Marchetti. Elena's broken little sister. How sweet that you came to die together. I didn't come to die. Jade walked forward, ignoring the weapons, her eyes locked on Isabella. I came to tell you something Elena never got the chance to say. She stopped 10 feet away. That thumb drive Vincent's holding? Real. It's complete. It's everything you think you need. Then why are you here? Because 20 minutes ago, I uploaded the entire contents to every major news outlet, government agency, and law enforcement database in the Western Hemisphere. Jade's smile was sharp as broken glass. With a dead man's switch. If my heartbeat stops, if Vincent stops, if anything happens to Isabella, it all goes public. Every name, every crime, every secret. The warehouse went silent. Victoria's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? Jade pulled out her phone, showing her screen. These are confirmation emails. FBI. Interpol. The Guardian. They all have the files encrypted with instructions to publish if they don't receive an all-clear code from me every 12 hours. She tilted her head. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let Isabella go. You're going to walk away. And you're going to spend the rest of your life praying we never miss a check-in. I could kill you right now. And the files publish in, Jade checked her watch, 7 minutes when I miss my next check-in. Congratulations, you'd have destroyed yourself. She took another step forward. Or you could take the drive, accept that Elena beat you even from beyond the grave and disappear. Start over. Build a new operation far away from us. Victoria's gun hand trembled. Behind her, Margaret Castellano, still tied to a chair, made muffled sounds behind her gag. You've already lost, Jade said softly. The only question is whether you lose everything or just walk away with your life. The silence stretched like a wire ready to snap. Then Victoria lowered her gun. You're just like your sister, she said, her voice cold with grudging respect. Too smart for your own good. He looked at Vincent. Throw me the drive. Vincent tossed it. Victoria caught it one-handed, then shoved Isabella forward. The little girl stumbled and Jade was there instantly, catching her, pulling her close. Isabella's arms wrapped around Jade's neck like a vice, her small body shaking. Mama, she whispered. Mama came. Jade's eyes burned, but she didn't look away from Victoria. Leave. No. And if you ever come near this family again. The files publish. I understand. Victoria backed toward the exit, her team moving with her. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, Elena was one of the best operatives I ever trained. She could have ruled the world if she'd stayed. Her eyes flicked to Isabella. Instead she chose love. I hope it was worth it. Then she was gone. Vincent was at Jade's side in seconds, his hands on Isabella's face, checking her for injuries. Baby girl, are you okay? Did they hurt you? Isabella shook her head, then held out her rabbit. Mama's treasure safe. Just like she said. Vincent and Jade exchanged glances. Later. They'd deal with the rabbit and its hidden secrets later. Right now they had to secure the warehouse, free Margaret Castellano and get Isabella home. But as they walked toward the exit, Vincent carrying Isabella, Jade's hand in his, Dimitri approached with his phone. Boss, we have a problem. Vincent's jaw tightened. What now? That upload Jade mentioned? The one to all the news outlets. Dimitri's expression was complicated. It's real. He actually did it. And one of the agencies just sent a response. They want to. About Elena. About Strand. About everything. Jade and Vincent stopped. I had to, Jade said quietly. It was the only way to make the bluff real enough that she'd believe it. But I encrypted everything with a password. They can't access the files without it. And the password is? Jade looked at Isabella, who'd fallen asleep against Vincent's shoulder, her rabbit clutched tight. It's her first word. The one she said to me. They'll never guess it because they don't know her story. Vincent exhaled slowly. So we're still in control. For now. Jade squeezed his hand. But Vincent, those files. The people whose names are in there. When this gets out. When it gets out, we'll deal with it. Together. He shifted Isabella's weight. Right now, I just want to take my daughter home. My daughter. Not Castellano's granddaughter. Not Elena's secret. His. And maybe someday soon theirs. 3 months later the world looked different. The files had been released in a controlled leak. Enough to take down Victoria Strand's network and several corrupt officials. but not enough to create complete chaos. Vincent had used his connections to ensure the investigation stayed focused on the real criminals, leaving his own operations carefully insulated. Margaret Castellano had signed away all claims to Isabella in exchange for Vincent's promise not to reveal her involvement with Strand. She'd left the city and hadn't been heard from since. And Isabella? Isabella was thriving. Mama, watch. She stood at the edge of the estate's pool, preparing to jump. Papa said I'm a fish. Papa says a lot of things, Jade called back, laughing. She sat on the patio with a glass of wine, watching Vincent spot Isabella as she leaped into his arms with a splash. The little girl had bloomed in the months since her rescue. She talked constantly now, sometimes too much, according to Vincent, and had started calling both of them her parents without hesitation. Jade had moved out of the guest wing and into the main house. Into Vincent's life. Into the space Elena had left behind, but filling it with something entirely new. They hadn't defined what they were yet. Hadn't put labels on the way he reached for her hand in the dark or the way she kissed Isabella goodnight in the nursery that used to be Elena's sanctuary. But it was real. Growing. Healing. Vincent climbed out of the pool, water streaming down his shoulders, and sat beside Jade. She's asking about kindergarten. About making friends. Good. He should have friends. A normal life. Is any of this normal? Vincent's smile was crooked. A mafia boss, a former psychiatric patient, and a 4-year-old who carries state secrets in her stuffed rabbit? We're working on it. Jade leaned her head on his shoulder. Besides, I already removed the drive from the rabbit. It's in a safety deposit box now. Isabella just has a normal toy. Does she know? About Elena? About what her mother did? Someday we'll tell her. When she's old enough to understand. Jade watched Isabella practicing her swimming. But right now she's just a little girl who gets to be happy. That's enough. Vincent's arm came around her shoulders. Thank you. For staying. For fighting. For being exactly what we needed. I didn't do it for you, Jade said softly. I did it for her. And for Elena. And maybe, for myself too. Still. Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence watching Isabella play, until she climbed out of the pool and ran over, dripping everywhere. Mama, Papa, can we have ice cream? It's almost dinner time, Vincent started. Please? I'll eat all my vegetables. Jade laughed. How about 1 scoop? After dinner. 2 scoops. 1.5. Deal. Isabella threw her arms around both of them, soaking them with pool water. I love you. Both of you. So much. Vincent's eyes met Jade's over Isabella's wet head, and she saw everything there. Grief for Elena, gratitude for survival, and something that looked suspiciously like hope. Maybe even love. We love you too, baby girl, Jade whispered. Always. And in that moment, sitting in the fading sunlight with Vincent's arm around her and Isabella's laughter filling the air, Jade finally understood what Elena had been trying to tell her all along. Family wasn't just blood. It was a choice. Sacrifice. Love is fierce enough to change everything. Elena had chosen to protect her daughter by any means necessary. And now Jade had chosen to give that daughter the life Elena had died trying to secure. A life of safety. Of love. A second chances. As the sun set over the estate, Jade closed her eyes and sent a silent prayer to the sister she'd lost. I've got her, Elena. I've got them both. And I promise I'll never let them go. Somewhere in whatever came after, she hoped Elena finally found peace. Thank you so much for sticking with this incredible story until the very end. If this moved you, if Isabella's journey touched your heart, drop a comment below and tell me what part hit you the hardest. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because we have so many more emotional stories coming your way. Where are you watching from? Let me know. Until next time, remember, family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one you choose. See you in the next story.